welcome back. I'm Sarah with Pentacle Design, and we're here at the Houston Green Building Resource Center with Steve Stelzer. As you can see, we have our masks and we are social distancing because we're in the middle of a pandemic, but that doesn't mean that we can't be thinking about important things like sustainable design, especially with the increased cost of food and energy. This is something we should all be thinking about. So Steve is going to talk to us about solar panels and how a grid-tied solar power system works.
All right, well, in front of one of my favorite displays, our Solar 101, which is, this information is right there. I'm going to go over that for you, but if you were standing here, you could actually teach yourself. On a solar panel itself, let's look at first of all, what is involved in the system. So possibly you can see the panel, an inverter, the main breaker, your house, the grid, and the meter, okay? So basically your home is going to still be connected to the grid, but you're going to be getting some power from your solar panels, and that's going to go into your house so that you basically use less power from the grid. So your energy bills go down depending on how many solar panels you have. So what is a kW of solar? All right, let's explain the terminology. kW means a kilowatt. We measure solar energy or electrical energy in watts, okay? And then we pay by the kilowatt hour. So kilowatts over time is what we pay by. So 4 solar panels at 250 watts is a kilowatt of solar, okay? So people go, hey, how big's your system? How many kilowatts you have? Oh, well, I have 10 kilowatts. So that would mean you would have, you'd have a lot of solar panels. 4 times 2 times 2, okay? So 16, you have 16 panels for a 10 kilowatt system if they were 250 watts. Now, there's plenty of solar panels out there that are over 300 watts. So you would need less of them if you wanted to still have 10 kilowatts. So you can get into the math game is what I'm trying to say. All right, so interestingly, a kilowatt can produce 120 kilowatt hours per month. So then we have this, how much power per unit time? And so do we want to talk about per month, per year? You know, what do we want to talk about, okay? So at any rate, a kilowatt will offset 1 ton of carbon dioxide, if anybody cares about that, all right? And a kilowatt costs, okay, now we got people's attention, okay? About $2,100 installed, and that also depends on your tax credit, which is there still is a tax credit, but it's going down. And then it will pay for itself in about 10 years. So now we have the people that they want to get paid back in 3 years, and so 10 years does not fit their criteria. Okay, sorry, what can I tell you? One of these days we're going to get solar panels that are really fabulous, but not until a lot of people work on them, and you know the R&D budgets get jumped, and we get more incentives, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so at this point we're looking at about a 10-year payback, and so if you're cool with that, you're going to put this money into solar. You're going to start reducing your energy bills right away, but you're not going to pay off your investment until 10 years from now. Okay, so it's like a car loan, all right, except nobody gets a 10-year car loan. So, all right, that's where we are. So then we have, how many panels do I need? And so a lot of people want to say, well, I need enough panels to take my house off the grid. Well, not really, but I mean, you know, how many do you need? So let's think about that. In Houston, an average of a 2,000 square foot new home is expected to use about 14,000 kilowatt hours per year, okay? So if you want to take your new home off the grid, you could get a 10 kW system of about 40 panels at 250 watts. And so it's a little different than what I was talking about earlier with 16, so I didn't do the math in my head too good. But at any rate, that is going to give you a net zero house. In other words, that will take your house off the grid, okay? So that basically, how much does solar power cost? So what we have here is a 5 kW solar power system, which is half of what we just talked about, can start as low as $15,000. Okay, so it's still somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000. This is 6-year-old numbers. But what's happened is, while solar panels have kind of come down in cost, the people that put them in are wanting to make more money than they used to. I mean, so wages versus costs of the infrastructure itself. So there we are. That's about how much it costs, and a lot of people are thinking, I don't really have 15 grand, I want to throw at the house so that in 10 years I got to pay it off and I'm not paying any energy bills. So how do you think, and where do you want to be in 10 years? And if you're going to, well, first of all, some people think, am I going to even live in the house for 10 years? Okay, these are the things you have to think about. Okay, so that's why maybe we haven't had as many solar installations in Houston as we have had in California, let's say, where they've got them all over the place. So, these are the things that people have to think about. And then, of course, there's the whole incentive thing. Do we have any incentives? Is your city going to help you out? At the moment, not in Houston. So that's kind of where we are. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts. It's fairly convoluted on what that is, and the first step is becoming educated. And so, come on down, or hey, Google it. There's all kinds of information on the internet. I'm happy to chat with you about it. I've got installers that I know that can talk to you about how much it's really going to cost. There are organizations out there that group up. Solarize Houston for one, where you can get into a purchase group. They get 10 group people that want to put solar on their house, and they can get a discount from a solar installer who then gets to do all 10. And so that can take the price down, maybe from $15,000 to, I don't know, $13,000. So, it's what is it going to take to, really get someone who's interested in this to actually do it. The good news is it's a whole lot better now than it was a decade ago. So if you're even thinking about it, it's a lot more mainstream. You can see that there's a lot of talk out there, in the ether about renewable energy, and solar is a very prime example. And by the way, this whole idea that they only last for 25 years, 25 years is how long they're going to run at peak efficiency, and then they're going to ever so slightly start to degrade. So you could actually have solar panels could outlive you. They might not be performing at the exact same perfection, but they're still going to be performing. So I think that's about it.
Just a few questions, Steve. We have a picture here of the Mickey Leland Federal Building, which has solar panels on top. How can solar panels be used for businesses to cut their overall costs down?
Basically the same way as they can be used at your house.
At window number
What happens
15.
is you're generating energy at your building that then immediately requires less energy from the grid. Basically, these inverters are very smart instruments. They change the DC because the solar is produced from the solar panels in direct current. Changes it, inverts it to alternating current, but at like 1 higher volt. Well, interestingly, the slightly higher voltage jumps in line ahead of the energy that's coming from the grid. Isn't that interesting? I mean, it just kind of blows me away that it does that, but it doesn't. Okay, so instead of, if you're using 200 kilowatt hours an hour, all of a sudden you're only using 180 kilowatt hours per hour because you've got the solar coming in. So that's how that works. And businesses tend to be able to find incentives. There are some financing mechanisms out there that you can get a lower rate for taking out a loan to install all this, and then it gets paid off, and with less money, and so you might even have this a quicker payback for that kind of a situation. So that depends on the finance guys really getting their heads in the game, but it operates pretty much the same whether it's residential or commercial.
Thank you, Steve. That's wonderful.